There's a lot of reasons why we don't want to do ketosis forever. And it does amazing things short term where it ramps up energy production, it creates more mitochondria, and all these amazing things happen. The benefits start to go away and eventually you could hurt yourself. It's not a cheat meal, it's a feast meal. There's a big difference in that terminology and we use it really strategically. We say feast and not cheat. The more hours of fasting before bed, the better the scores and the better we feel in the morning when we wake up. So what is vitamin G? It's gratitude right here. There's no upper limit. You cannot overdose on it. It's free, but you got to feel the gratitude. Don't treat it like a checklist. Watch what it will do for your health.
I love it. Ben, brother, welcome to the show.
It's an honor. I love your work, Ryan. I love you, dude. We're going to have some fun.
Brother, this is going to be incredible. I think we can go on a million different directions. We're probably going to have to do like 19 different episodes just to cover everything that's inside of your brain. We probably won't even touch half of it by then. But today I want to touch on a super specific topic. I want to talk about this concept of keto flexing, because I think a lot of people come in and they go, I'm going to do keto and I got to be on keto for my whole life. And that's no ifs, ands, or buts. And you've kind of taken a different approach. You've even written a book on it, and said, there's this concept of keto flexing. So maybe just start with, what is keto flexing?
Yeah, and I know we align here with keto flexing. You do something similar, teach something similar. The name of the game is to be healthy and not to be dogmatic, first and foremost. And I've learned my lesson being dogmatic about several things, a vegan. And then when I first started keto in 2013, I was very dogmatic. But metabolic flexibility is the key, right? So when we think about ketosis, we know that it's not necessarily a diet. It's more of a metabolic process, and there's nothing new about it. It's been around for as long as humans have existed. As a matter of fact, we probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for this metabolic process, because when our ancestors went through a famine or when they didn't have food or carbohydrates available, they had to tap into this process to fuel the brain and use ketones. Otherwise, they would go hypoglycemic and not be able to think and focus, and they wouldn't be able to catch their prey and they would have died, right? So when we think about keto, we know that it's a very normal metabolic process. However, it's not the only process. It's one of two main processes. We're burning sugar or fat, so ketones or glucose. So when I talk about keto flexing, it's getting people into this metabolic state, because most people, the majority of Americans, 90% plus, they're in a keto deficiency. They have forgotten about the process. They're pure sugar burners, and that's going to age you really fast. So we got to get them into this process, get them fat adapted, keto adapted, which takes a few weeks to a few months. And at that point, we've built up this metabolism to now flex in and out, meaning going in and out of ketosis. Have some days where you're eating healthy carbs, you process them well, and then you go back into ketosis. And that could be a daily thing, it could be a weekly thing, it could be a monthly thing. It depends on the person. But that's what keto flexing is. It's what others might call carb cycling or keto cycling. I call it keto flexing, and we're really strategic with the methods on how to do it.
I love it. So walk me through how long, maybe, because you don't do that from day one, right? Where people go back and forth. How long do you maybe adapt them? Is it 4 weeks, 8 weeks, or longer? Where we're pretty strict on a ketogenic diet, and then we start kind of doing strategic carbohydrate reintroduction, this keto flexing concept.
For the average person, around the 8-week mark, we'll start flexing them. Now, if they're at the 8-week mark, that means they've been in ketosis for 8 weeks straight. They're testing their blood ketones, verifying that. If they still have metabolic damage, if they're still insulin resistant or type 2 diabetic, we might keep them in there longer. Or instead of having a keto flex day, which is introducing more carbs, we'll have a keto flex day that's introducing more protein and calories. Just a different way to do it. And it's a way of just reminding the body that you're not in this survival state. It's a way of reminding the body to make gluconeogenesis. And you could do it without carbs, right? You could do it with protein and just excess calories.
So is this typically, so you hit the 8-week mark, boom, you've been going pretty strict. Now, is it a day? Do you do back-to-back days? You don't do back-to-back days? How does that, or does it vary on the individual?
It'll vary on the individual. We have some rules of thumb. Like, for example, for a menstruating woman, she would have 7 days in a row of higher healthy carb days, keto flex days, the week before her period, to build progesterone and estrogen. And then once her period starts, she'll go into ketosis. So she's going to have a different protocol versus like a postmenopausal woman or a man. They have more of a 24-hour kind of recycling of their hormones. So they do something called the 5-1-1 rule, which actually I got from my mentor, Dr. Pompa. And we use it, which is 5 days of intermittent fasting and keto, 1 day, 24-hour fast, and then one flex day, no fasting, high healthy carbs. So you would do that once a week for, in general, postmenopausal women and for men.
I love that. Love that concept of the 5-1-1. Talk to me about when you say high carb day. I think people are like, oh, does that mean I blow it out and I eat every cake, cookies, fries? What does that mean when you say high carb day?
Yeah, good question. Ideally, no, it's not that way. It's not a cheat meal, it's a feast meal. There's a
Love
big
it.
difference in that terminology, and we use it really strategically. We say feast and not cheat. Now, if you're going to have days where you're going to eat the bad stuff, eat the pizza, the ice cream, and drink the alcohol, ideally it would be better to do that on a flex day. But um, overall, we don't really want to do that. We want to have healthy carbs. And when I say high carbs, to your point, Ryan, I'm talking about 100 to maybe 150 grams of carbs for that day, which if you compare to the average of standard American diet, that's still considered kind of low carb, right?
Right.
So it's just enough to make these hormonal conversions and get yourself out of ketosis and to get yourself back in. It's not about having 2 boxes of pizza and ice cream and all that and having 400 grams of carbs. Ideally, you don't want to really do that. And you're going to notice when you start to have those foods after you've been so good without eating the processed junk, your body's going to respond to that. And you're going to notice that you don't feel that great. You're going to have brain fog. You're going to feel puffy. You're going to be more sensitive to the bad foods. In the past, when you're eating them every day, you kind of get numb to it. So you might just listen to your body and say, maybe this is not something I want to do in a flex day. I want to have more healthy carbs. So what are healthy carbs? I would go with white rice. Like if you're metabolically healthy, I'll have white rice, fruit, sweet potato, yam, yuca, plantains. These are things that I have. But whole foods that are carbohydrates, I would still stay away, of course, from like vegetable oils and gluten. Those are things that I stay away from as much as possible. But whole foods in general, healthy carbs on those flex days.
I love it. Now, on those flex days, are there other principles that you typically incorporate in? Like, do you say, hey, do you do anything specific with workouts, with movement, or is it just focused on the nutrition piece?
Yeah, another great question. That would be a good day for more of your heavy loads of training, right? Because you're having more carbohydrates. So you're just going to replenish the glycogen stores. So you'll have a little bit more burst. So, if you play basketball like I do, that could be a good keto flex day where you're just going to have carbohydrates, replenish your glycogen stores, and then you have an additional fuel storage as you use that, and then go back to your body fat. CrossFit workouts, anything like your workouts that you do, Ryan, it would be a good day to do a flex day on a heavy training day. It goes hand in hand really well.
I love that. And so I think this concept for a lot of people is kind of like, oh, it's freeing in some essence to go, oh my gosh, you mean I can never have a carb again? That's what some people say, and you're like, no, we can incorporate in on a flex day, right? What are some of the potential downsides that you see in like long term ketosis without these flex days, right? Like someone who's like, oh, cool, I'm going to go do keto for the next 10 years and I'm not going to ever touch a carb again. In some of this, you talked a little bit about it, but hit more on like this like metabolic flexibility. They clearly wouldn't be metabolically flexible if they're stuck in that for 10 years. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just a different form of metabolic inflexibility. And it's kind of controversial, right? Like we're both in the keto space, and we're talking about not doing keto forever. Not a lot of people will like that message. There's people that I adore that are my friends and they're educators in the space, and they don't necessarily agree with that. They think ketosis should be forever, and we don't believe that, Ryan. I know that we have a different philosophy. So there's a lot of reasons why we don't want to do ketosis forever. Number one, I consider ketosis a stress to the body, like fasting, right? And it's not that stress is bad for you. Stress is important if you adapt to it. It's called hormesis. But too much stress is bad for you when you don't adapt to it. So when you're in ketosis, our ancestors were in ketosis pretty much because they were going through a stressful time. There was not food available. So it kind of signals to your body you're going through a stressor, and it does amazing things short term where it ramps up energy production. It creates more mitochondria and all these amazing things happen. Glutathione increases. But there comes a point where that hormetic curve, meaning the benefits start to go away and eventually you could hurt yourself and harm yourself. So, for example, thyroid conditions are like the most common one that I see, especially in
Mm.
women. When we think about how the thyroid works, We know that it's a very interesting organization of different moving parts, where we have the brain, the hypothalamus pituitary, that is communicating with the thyroid and stimulating it to create that thyroid hormone, which is TSH, which is what most doctors measure. And TSH is not even a thyroid. It's not even a lab test, essentially, to give you an idea of thyroid health. It's giving you an idea of the communication. And unfortunately, it's still the gold standard, but it's much more than that, because then the thyroid stimulates T4, which is not active. It needs to be converted and activated to T3. And T3 is very important. It gets into the cell. Every cell has a receptor site for T3. It helps the mitochondria create energy. And what helps make that conversion is actually insulin. So with chronically low levels of insulin over time, that conversion doesn't happen as efficiently. And then you see lower levels of T3 and higher levels of reverse T3, which is more when your body's in a stressful state. And reverse T3 actually blocks T3. So thyroid conditions are number one. And then number two actually would be weight loss starts to slow down. And you might think, why? People think it's a matter of like restricting their carbs more. If they're like at 30 grams a day and weight loss has slowed down after 5 months of keto, they go to like 10 grams. But the body wants to survive. The number one priority for the innate intelligence is survival. So if your only fuel source is fat, and you taught the body to only burn fat, you've forgotten about glucose, it's going to want to preserve that precious fuel source and slow down fat burning. And we see that with people kind of getting like dimply fat. And then cortisol is the other issue there. And there's more, but I'll stop after cortisol, because your body is going to create glucose any way possible. And cortisol could be a way to do that. And it could create higher levels of cortisol. And that could be problematic in so many ways. So we see that, I see it a lot with people who do keto all the time and carnivore all the time. But the flex day makes those hormonal conversions. It tames cortisol. It does so many great things for the body. And to your point, Ryan, it's like you're freeing yourself up because you don't have to be so rigid and restrictive.
Right.
Most people are metabolically inflexible because they're only burning sugar and not burning fat. But the people in the keto space are metabolically inflexible because they're only burning fat and not burning sugar. We want to be really good at going back and forth between both pathways without any hiccup.
I love it. I love it. And I think it's interesting because I think we live in a society where if you look at the amount of people who are fueled primarily on glucose and carbohydrates, it's like 99%, right? And maybe 1% of the time they're in ketosis. You and I talk about this all the time. Ketosis is a metabolic state. And so that doesn't mean we need to swing to the opposite end of the spectrum and say we need to be in ketosis 99% of the time and only fueled by glucose 1% of the time. If we lived in a world where just the majority, even if it was 51-49, was we're more fueled on ketones than we are on glucose, we would be a heck of a lot better than we are today. And so we're just swinging that pendulum, not all the way, but we're saying, hey, listen, the majority of it should be ketones and ketosis versus glucose and carbohydrates, but it's okay to have those days, right?
100%. Yeah. The problem is that people, most of America, not just America, the world, they're burning sugar.
Right.
They're in that keto deficiency. We got to remind them. And you know this, Ryan, babies that are born into this world are actually in ketosis. Breast milk has saturated fat and cholesterol. And the argument is like, yeah, but Ben, there's sugar in breast milk. And that is true. But the baby is so efficient at utilizing the sugar, it goes in and out of ketosis because it helps the development of that baby's brain. It's our natural birthright. It's just a metabolic process that we've forgotten about.
Exactly. So walk me through, like use the example of the female where you said 7 days prior to their menstrual cycle, we increase their carbohydrate intake. Then we go a little bit more strict on keto. What do we do the other 2 weeks? What would be some type of recommendation?
Yeah. So when we look at that 28-day pattern, we look at the main hormones would be testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, luteinizing hormone. And there's different variations throughout those 28 days. And, you know, I'm giving the general rules here, but some women have a 24-day cycle. Some women have 32, but I'm giving a 28-day as like a general rule of thumb. But the first week, which is the bleed week, categorized as a, full menstrual cycle is taking place. That's when you're actually going to be more resilient, meaning you could be more aggressive with keto, with fasting. If you want to do like a longer fast, 3 or 5 days, the week of the period would be the best week to do that. The second week would be the best week for these women to practice strength training because there's an increase in testosterone. And you could also increase your protein intake. You could still do keto and fasting, maybe to a lesser degree with the fasting, but focusing more on protein, animal-based protein, and doing more strength training is a good week. The second week is a good week to do that. And with testosterone comes, more confidence, more creativity. So that's also a good week if you're in a position to like speak on stage, or you want to ask for a raise, or you want to be bold and ask somebody on a date, whatever it is. That's a good week to kind of muster up that confidence, because testosterone is going to help you do that. And then the week after that, the hormonal landscape changes, which is the third week as well. And you could still do keto, but you want to kind of restrict fasting to about 16 hours. You don't want to really go longer than that. I would say the week before the period is the most important week to build progesterone, and you don't build progesterone with aggressive keto and fasting. So having those 7 days of higher healthy carbs and not much fasting before the period is probably the biggest week of them all.
Amazing. Great practical advice. Now, what, in terms of intermittent fasting, I want to touch on this, is like, what do you traditionally recommend? Maybe even for that first 8 weeks. Are you flexible with it? Do you give an open window? Or is it, no, we got to do 16 hours, like a 16-8 and a 24-hour fast once a week? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, in the beginning, we don't really practice much fasting until we get them fat adapted, which would be a 7 to 14-day approach.
Yep.
Because you know this, Ryan, like fasting is also a stress to the body. And if you're burning sugar and you go into an 18-hour fast, like it's going to feel awful. You're going to feel like crap, and you might have great willpower to kind of push through, but your body will find a way to get glucose up in the brain, and it will do that by breaking down protein, maybe via gluconeogenesis. But when you're fat adapted, the glucose will drop in the brain, and then ketones start flooding in, and you could use exogenous ketones too to do that. But ketones flood into the brain, and it tells the body, you're okay. We're not going to have to break down protein. It's okay. We're going to utilize these ketones. So after that person's fat adapted, which is 7 to 14 days or so, then we start adding in fasting, and we look at it like a muscle, the fasting muscle. So we'll start with the simple 12-hour fast, which is you're done eating at 7 p.m., go to bed, break the fast at 7 a.m. Pretty easy peasy. Yep. Ryan could do that any day. And then we build that up to a daily 18-6, meaning 18 hours fasted, 6-hour eating window. And then the question I always get asked is like, what's the best eating window for the best results? And I always say the better eating window is going to be the one that's best for your schedule. If your schedule is better to have lunch and dinner and skip breakfast, that works better for your schedule, do that. If your schedule is better to have breakfast and lunch and skip dinner, do that. But if you are going to want to like just focus on maximizing the results in fasting, I do believe in early time restricted feeding, meaning skipping dinner and having breakfast and lunch. And I don't like that approach personally, because I like to be fasted throughout the day. I just get my work. You too, Ryan. Yeah, we get our work done. You just want to utilize that. But there's a lot of research coming out that shows like having breakfast and lunch is far superior than having lunch and dinner and skipping breakfast. And it makes me think of Dr. Courtney Peterson from the University of Birmingham, Alabama. She did this incredible study, which was controlled. Do you know about the study, Ryan?
Yeah, the breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. Where same calories, and they tracked this in a lab. Same fasting schedules in 18-6. The only difference was that one group had breakfast and lunch. So they ate between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. And the other group ate between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. And they tracked autophagy. They tracked the LC3A protein, which is a measure of autophagy. And they could do that in the lab. We can't do that at home yet. They tracked sirtuins, like the SIRT1 gene, and they saw a lot of great things. They saw more insulin sensitivity in the group that had a breakfast and lunch. They saw after 4 days a 10% increase in the SIRT1 gene for the breakfast group, and they saw 22% more autophagy in the breakfast group compared to the other group. So if you want to really maximize it, have breakfast and lunch. But even me knowing that, I still skip breakfast because it works better for my schedule. And then we build from there. We do different things like alternate day fasting, a 24-hour fast. But it starts with that 18-6 and then going from there.
Same, man. I love that. I mean, I wish I could do I eat breakfast and lunch and skip dinner. It's just more practical for most people. But some people, are perfectly fine with it and can get away with that. And it really would make sense, right? From a circadian rhythm sort of,
Yeah.
like when you're most active, that's when you're eating. When you're least active, like I know I'm exhausted by like 6, 7 p.m. I'm like, I could probably go to bed some days and I feel like I'm
Same.
done.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that, hey, you know what? You and I take the same approach. Listen, find what suits best with your schedule, but it probably would be beneficial to do breakfast and lunch, even if you can do it a couple days a month. I'd say that would be great for
Right.
people just to switch it up, right?
Yeah, and the overall thing is just to have more hours of fasting before you go to bed. So even if it's
Yes.
not, yeah, even if you can't have breakfast because of whatever, you're like me, like I don't want to do breakfast just because I like to feel fasted throughout my day. Just have at least 3 hours of fasting before bed, but even better, 5 hours. And the longer, the bigger you create that window of fasting before bed, the better you're going to feel, the better results you're going to get. And if you track things like you have the Oura Ring, if you track, yeah, you have it too. If you track heart rate variability, resting heart rate, deep sleep, REM sleep, like I know personally from myself and then looking at students' data that the more hours of fasting before bed, the better the scores and the better we feel in the morning we wake up. So that's the overall goal there. Just have more hours of fasting before bedtime.
I love it. And it's so counterintuitive to what typically happens, because if you look at the data, I've been looking at some data on like fasting apps recently, and 100% of an individual's caloric needs are met by 6:30, yet 15% of what people eat comes after 9 p.m. And we
Wow.
know what comes after 9 p.m. isn't, oh, I'm drinking a protein shake, right?
Right.
They're having chips, ice cream, cookies, and not like low carb cookie. They're having
Right.
everything. And that's really where a big problem. Intermittent fasting kind of cuts that out. It makes it simple to go, hey, I'm done eating. I'm like, versus, oh, well, let me just go get a snack at 9 p.m. when I'm getting ready to go to bed. That's not doing you any good.
Oh, so true. That's a crazy stat.
Yeah.
15%, even though
15%.
they've met it by 6 p.m., they're still, yeah, and you're right. They're not eating broccoli and salmon. They're eating some bad stuff.
Yeah.
For me, what works is brushing my teeth. Let's say I ate dinner at 6
Great.
p.m. and brushing, because I don't want to brush my teeth twice, right? So it's like, yeah, that's it. I'm done. Kitchen is closed. I'm not brushing my teeth again. So yeah, brush your teeth. That might help.
Great advice. Some people like Jacob will do mouthwash. So like once you have that kind of minty flavor in your mouth, you're like, it doesn't really sound like, oh, let me go bite into an ice cream sandwich.
Right.
No, that's not happening, right? I love
Yeah,
it.
there's so much, and there's so much science out there showing that you do not want to eat before bed.
Yep.
You are less insulin sensitive, insulin and melatonin have an inverted relationship. So if you ate a whole bunch of carbs before bed, you're going to produce melatonin because you're going to bed. Let's say you sleep, and it's going to lower insulin, meaning it's going to keep your blood sugars high as you sleep. Not to mention all the processes to digest food. So you're going to have high glucose levels throughout the night because now insulin is suppressed because melatonin is increased, and
Yep.
it just doesn't make sense from a circadian standpoint.
Love it. Now, talk to me about do you do specific ratios when we're talking keto flexing? Maybe those first 8 weeks, for example, do you say, hey, we're going to do 75% fat, 20% protein, 5%? How do you structure that, or are you a little bit more flexible? What's your approach on that?
Yeah, I'm curious to know your approach too. Mine has evolved over the years. It's not necessarily what I teach a high fat diet anymore. In the beginning, it is the first 14 days we do follow something called the 2-2-2-2 rule, which is okay. In the first 14 days, as we gradually lower your carbs to get it under a total of 50 grams per day, we want to introduce a whole bunch of healthy fats to teach your body, your metabolism, start burning fatty acids for fuel. So hit this rule. So it's 2 tablespoons of olive oil or avocado oil per day, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil or MCT oil per day, 2 tablespoons of butter or ghee per day, and then 2 teaspoons of salt to replenish the electrolytes. So we do that for 14 days, which is high fat. We're not necessarily looking at a percentage, but we're just hitting that rule. After they're in ketosis, and we're verifying that by looking at their blood, their beta hydroxybutyrate in the blood, then I tell them to focus on protein and
Mm.
don't worry about hitting a fat percentage or following that 2-2-2-2 rule anymore, because now your body could get the fat from your body fat. Most people want to do that, but get 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. And then just get the fat that naturally comes with that protein and keep carbs under 50 total grams and follow that approach until we tweak things in the future.
I love it. I think that's incredible advice. One with kind of that protein focus. I think a lot of the early literature, people were going 80% 80% fat ketogenic diets, and unfortunately, that came at the sacrifice of muscle. Right. So
Mm,
if you do that long term, a week or 2 weeks, perfectly fine. Long term, it's hard to go 80, 85% fat and then get hitting your protein needs, right? Especially for
true.
people who are active. So I kind of float. I don't even do, but I've tracked my percentage just to see where I'm at. I'm at like 60%,
Of fat?
60% fat, maybe 50 to 60%, but way less than what I originally back when 4 or 5 years ago, I was always like 70, 75% fat.
Same.
I don't think you need to do that anymore. I think as long as you're incorporating in some of these other principles that we're talking about, intermittent fasting, dialing in your sleep, moving, right? 7,500 to 10,000 steps a day, ideally doing some form of resistance training or cardio training. As long as you're doing some of these other things, you can kind of pull these levers and be a little bit more flexible.
That's the goal. Yeah, and people, that's a misconception around keto that you have to hit that certain percentage of fat. Not necessarily, maybe in the beginning, but over a long period of time, protein should be the focus. I agree with you.
Now, hit me on your thoughts during that time with net carbs, right? Obviously,
Mm.
there's this concept of net carbs. People don't really know. Do I go net carbs? Do I do total carbs? When you say 50 grams, is that total or net?
It's total. I used to do the net thing, and then there's a lot of gray areas with that. I saw people
Big
were
time.
getting away with a few things. So we keep it to total. And 50 is the upper limit, meaning we're not saying you have to hit 50. We're saying just don't go past 50 for most people. If you're insulin resistant and type 2 diabetic, probably 30 or 20 for those individuals. But yeah, 50 total grams, and coming from non starchy, lower plant toxin vegetables like arugula, bitters, etc. Less of like the kale and spinach. So lower oxalate sort of vegetables. But yeah, 50 total grams is the upper limit for most people.
That's incredible. So, and talking about those carbohydrates, like you just said, most of those are coming from vegetables. Do you incorporate in any fruits, or is it mainly just like low oxalate vegetables?
It's more bitters, low oxalate vegetables. Fruits, it'll depend on like if the person's like Ryan who has like a lot of muscle mass, they could probably get away with more like berries and fruit and still stay in ketosis. But for most people who I see and go through my academy, they're more insulin resistant and overweight. So not so much fruit in the beginning. It's more of the bitters. And some people go straight up carnivore, and I'm okay with that, short term as well. So they don't even want the vegetables, and I'm okay with that too.
Now, how do you work with someone who, I don't know if you have this, but people who are more like plant focused? Is it harder to say, hey, obviously there's challenges with protein sources and some of these other challenging vegetables. How do you work with someone like that?
Yeah, there's not too many in my group, but there are a few.
Mhm.
They could get into ketosis utilizing different fasting strategies, right, and,
Mhm.
and staying active and working on muscle mass. But then it is hard to get their B vitamins and their amino acids. So I might have them go on like Perfect Aminos is a great supplement that I'll have them go on to kind of fill in some gaps and some B vitamins. And it depends on what type of vegetarian they are. Some of them do ghee or eggs or some fish.
Sure.
That's going to be a lot easier than somebody who's completely plant based. I don't think I have anybody in my group that is like a complete vegan. There's some vegetarians, but yeah, I don't really work with a lot of vegans. I don't know if you have, but I could imagine it could be a little challenging for keto.
For sure, 100%. I know we're winding down on time here. We could talk about a million different things. We're gonna have to talk. We could talk all about seed oils. Talk about all vegetables. We could talk about deeper on intermittent fasting. One of the things I want to bring up on intermittent fasting, I saw recently you posted about something about Thomas Seyfried, great
Mm.
researcher, about how he's done some research, particularly in like the cancer world. And all of a sudden, I see it gets flagged. Like it is literally like blacked out, flagged on your page. One, can you tell us what that is, what you said about it, and two is why do you think that was flagged?
So, yeah, that's not the first time that's happened, by the way. Instagram is
Crazy.
totally have been throttling me since January. My following count has stayed the same since January, and that's like the 5th video that's gotten that false information flag. That video got a false information flag months ago when I first posted it, and I reposted it because I don't give a crap. And I'll share what I said. I said it was a 6-second video. I was talking about fasting, utilizing fasting as a way to prevent diseases like cancer. And Boston College cancer researcher Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who wrote the book Cancer as a Metabolic Disease, has stated that if you completed a 7-day water fast once a year, you could potentially reduce your risk of cancer by up to 95%. That was the whole video. And they put that tag on there. They attached a whole article saying I'm oversimplifying it. And it's like, it makes sense, right? I know why they did it, because if they're going to lose billions of dollars when people start fasting, you're not going to spend money on, processed Franken food. But I'm telling you, every time I've been posting these like seed oil videos, they're now getting that same flag. And it's just a silly world we live on in social media right now.
That's crazy. Before I go into our final 4, which are just quick, rapid questions, want to pick your brain on some personal stuff. What are some things that people can do? So we talked about keto flexing. We talked about intermittent fasting. We talked about sleep, not eating at least 3, maybe ideally 5 hours before sleep. What are some other things? I know you're big on blue light blocking glasses. What are some other things that people can do to optimize their sleep? Because it doesn't matter how dialed in your nutrition or training is. If your sleep's stinking, you're done, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think they're all important. Nutrition, movement, but I would put sleep as like the most important, because if you think about it, you could eat like crap for a month and you might feel off. You could not exercise for a month and be sedentary and you might feel a little off, but try to not sleep for a month. You're going to turn into a crazy person. It's impossible, right? So sleep is very important. It's the Swiss Army knife of health because it touches upon everything in health. A good sleep routine would be actually starting the morning of, getting sunshine in the morning. And me and Ryan live in Florida. It's easier for us to do that and say that. But even on an overcast day, getting outside for 15, 20 minutes, sometime in the morning when the sun is coming up, sunrise, and taking off your sunglasses, please. I get at my mom's case about this all the time. Mom, take your sunglasses off. You want the sun to penetrate your retina, touch your skin. It's going to actually signal to your pineal gland to start storing melatonin for the night up ahead. And if you could stack that with watching the sunset that same day, then it signals to your pineal gland to start releasing that melatonin. So sunrise gazing and sunset gazing, even if it's overcast, would be key. And then the another tip would be to avoid anything that's going to stimulate you late at night. Like, for example, I'm a big Miami Heat fan, and they're in the finals right now, and I'm super excited about it. And I've been staying up late to watch these games. I go to bed at 9:30. These games are ending at 11:30, and like when the games are over, like my heart rate is up. I'm sweating. I'm like into these games, and I'm laying in bed for like an hour, falling asleep at 1 a.m. So don't do that, is what I'm saying. This is an exception for me. Find a routine that's calming, relaxing, maybe like a funny show like Ted Lasso or something, but avoid stimulation at night. And then, blue light blocking glasses, I wear those at night as well. There's other tips that we could get into, but that's a good starting point right there.
I love it. And then in terms of fluid intake, do you do anything like I've kind of thought of the 3-2-1 principle, 3 hours before bed, stop eating, 2 hours, kind of limit water or fluid intake. That way you're not waking up peeing in the middle of the night. Maybe 1 hour before bed. That's when you really start blocking out a lot of this junk. But what are your thoughts on fluid intake? Does that have an effect?
Yeah, good call. That used to be a problem for me, waking up in the middle of the night, going to the restroom. So ideally, if you could limit your fluid intake before bed, that's going to be better. So you're not waking up and activating cortisol. It might be hard to get back to bed. I've also noticed, and I don't know if there's science to back this up, but for myself, sometimes I'll have fluids like water, even an hour before bed. But if I take L-glycine, like 500 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams, it prevents me from waking up in the middle of the night. And I don't know if there's some research to back it up. Anecdotally, that helps for me. But it is a good idea to limit your fluid intake before bed.
I'll have to try that. That's super interesting.
Yeah, if you do, let me know. It works for me.
For sure. Brother, this has been packed with like practical stuff. And I love that about you. I think you just deliver just like boom, 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 things that people can implement, right? Versus, I mean, we'll do another follow-up where we can go deep into like all these different things. We'll hammer on seed oils. We'll talk deeper on intermittent fasting, talk even more on keto applications, right? Today we talked about keto flexing, but we still have so much more to cover on like what are the various different applications of keto? But I want to wrap this up by asking you 4 questions. I call it my final 4. First one is, what is your favorite meal and favorite snack?
Favorite meal is going to be a nice ribeye, grass-fed and grass-finished ribeye that's grilled medium, medium probably, with maybe like a slab of butter on top melting. I just love a
Love it.
good ribeye.
Love it.
Snack. Okay, snack would be, I'm not really a snacker. My fiance is a big snacker. I make fun of her all the time. Snacks, maybe like an avocado with some sea salt and olive oil, something like that.
That sounds good. I love
Yeah.
that. Favorite book of all time and what you're currently reading?
Oh, dude, that's hard, man. The favorite book of all time. I don't know if I could give you my favorite book of all time.
Or what you're currently reading. Is there anything you're currently reading that you're like, oh, this is interesting?
I'm currently listening to Dennis Waitley's The Psychology of Winning, like a revised version. It's like a 1970s book that he has a revised version on. Dennis Waitley. It's a great book, and I just finished another book called 10x is Easier Than 2x. It's not a Grant Cardone book, although it says 10x. It's a book from Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. It's a fantastic business book, dude. Probably one of the best. Yeah, one of the best business books that I've read. And then, in terms of like my all-time favorite, I'll give a couple of authors real quick. I would say anything from Dr. Wayne Dyer and from Bob Proctor, like those 2 are my 2 favorites. So anything from them are my favorite books.
Love it, brother. Last 2 things. What are you most excited about in your life right now?
Oh, I'm excited about a lot of things. It's hard to say one. And I know this is supposed to be a quick final 4 here. My favorite thing to do is to speak in person. So that's what I'm most excited about, is speaking in front of more people, getting introduced to them and just speaking on stages. And then in combination with that, I'd love to teach as well. So I'm writing the 2nd edition of Keto Flex, and I've been spending like 3 hours every day, and I'm really excited about getting that out there as well. So those are like a combination of speaking on stage and then getting Keto Flex 2nd edition out there.
Incredible, brother. And I will say this, I've seen you speak over the last couple of years, and I told you this last time, and I meant it. It's the best I've ever seen you. Like, you're refining that craft so well. It's only going to get better, but it's night and day from where I first saw you to where you are today. It's unbelievable how well you have a presence on a stage. So I love that you're doing that more.
Thank you, Ryan. That's I told you when you told that to me, I said it's an honor, man. I love your work. I've been admiring your work for quite some time. And when you came up to me after KetoCon, it was just, you said that, you texted me like I meant some. I showed it to my fiance. I'm like, look what Ryan said. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that so much, man.
Absolutely, brother. Last thing is, what's one thing people can do today to improve their health?
Yeah, easy. Take a supplement that you should take every single day. It's going to improve your health instantaneously. It's going to help with inflammation, weight loss, brain fog, autoimmune diseases, and it's called vitamin G. You can't get it at the supplement store, or you can't get it at Amazon. I'll explain why in a second. But Dr. Joe Dispenza has done brain scans on individuals taking vitamin G. He did actually a 4-day vitamin G workshop where they did vitamin G supplementation, 9 to 10 minutes twice a day. And he saw the IgA go up, which is protecting your immune system. He saw cortisol go down, and he saw 1,200 chemical reactions take place in the brain and the body that put the body in an anti-inflammatory state. I've seen studies that show vitamin G lowers blood pressure, lowers A1C. So what is vitamin G? It's gratitude, right here. The shirt says it. Vitamin G. So the practice would be to get into a grateful state every day. There's no upper limit. You cannot overdose on it. It's free, but you got to feel the gratitude. Don't treat it like a checklist. Feel the gratitude every day. Watch what it'll do for your health.
Amazing, brother. I love that. And last thing is, where can people find you? How can we support your work? Where can we find you at?
I have a podcast as well. I got to get you back, Ryan, for round 2, by the way. Keto Kamp Podcast, Kamp with the K. And then my website has everything else, which is benazadi.com.
Amazing, brother. Thank you so much. We'll have to go round 2, and then we'll eventually go to round 100 with you. But
I'm down.
I appreciate you, brother. Let's do it. And I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, bro. I was on your show. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, brother.